Hello, welcome to Aliasoft webinar. My name is Alejandro Delgado. I'm the Technical Director of Aliasoft, and thank you for joining us today in the second session of the series of webinars with the topic Prospect for the Energy Markets in Europe, PPA and its importance for large consumers, Vision of the Future. The speaker today will be Uriol Saltó, Data Analysis and Modeling Director of Aliasoft, that will present these interesting topics. Please use the Q&A menu to send us any questions you may have during the webinar, and we will answer them after the presentations. And now, I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Uriol, please share your slides.
Good morning. Thank you, Alejandro. My name is Uriol Saltó. I'm head of data analysis and modeling at Aliasoft, and I will be the speaker today, as Alejandro said. That's the content of the webinar today. Just one correction. As we were preparing the content of the webinar, we realized that talking about so many topics would be kind of complicated to condensate all in just in 1 hour webinar. So what we decided at the end is that the part in the vision of the future where we were about to talking about the green hydrogen and its role in decarbonizing the industry and the economy in general, maybe we will just mention it and we will leave the main content about that for the next webinar that will be the continuation of a new topic, but it will be in July 15. I'll give you the details afterwards. So just take that in mind. We will just mention the hydrogen, but we will cover the main topic and all the information that we have about that in the next webinar. So just I'll go ahead and just a few words about our company. If you don't know us, Aliasoft is offering forecasting services for the energy markets. We are covering all the markets in Europe, forecasting that goes from the short term up to long term. So obviously we are forecasting demand and electricity demand and price for the energy markets, but also production of renewable energies and forecasting any variable that can be interesting for the energy sector, weather conditions, socioeconomic indexes, fuel and CO2 prices, any variable that can impact the prices. And not only the ahead markets, but we are also forecasting into the markets and all the ancillary services, reserve markets, constraints, imbalances, etc. About our methodology, we always like to stress 3 main points. It is a methodology that is completely scientifically based. So it's a hybrid methodology that uses a combination of different techniques, some classical techniques like econometrics, regression, time series analysis, with more advanced techniques like from the artificial intelligence, like machine learning algorithms, etc. This gives us our forecast a consistency, so our forecast that keeps consistency over time and from one forecast to the next one. And what we can say that we have been using it for more than 21 years, starting in the Iberian electricity market and now covering all the energy markets in Europe. About the pandemic, well, we all know where we are. Vaccination rate is increasing. A large fraction already of the European population is vaccinated, at least with the first hit, with the first dose of the vaccines. Restrictions are progressively disappearing. The goal is to have most of them released by summer, in order to that would be a good an important boost to the economy if by summer we can get tourism, the tourism in the economy in some countries like Spain and Italy, where it is very important, it's an important component of the economy. If by summer we can have, let's say, a close to normal summer, it will be an important boost for the economy. So about the economic recovery, well, all the forecasts are being optimistic. Some GDP forecasts have been upgraded to more optimistic values recently, but well, there's always this shadow of new hits of the pandemic, new mass infections. But okay, right now we are optimistic. So we will start with the evolution of fuels and CO2 emission rights. Then we will go through the electricity markets. I'll always like to start with this historical perspective of the Brent oil price in order to see where we are actually in terms of the historic evolution. So basically in the year today, so far this year, we are already above $60 per barrel in the oil price, already at the level of the prices that we had in 2019, and basically fully recovered about the drop in prices during the COVID crisis in last year in 2020. Looking a little bit in more detail the recent developments, we see how since the dip in the first or the second quarter of 2020, basically the price of the Brent oil has been recovering, and recently the trend is clearly upwards. So prices are rising already above the $70 per barrel. So, and as the recovery of the economy is expected to be optimistic, these prices are clearly going up. If we look at the gas, we can see a similar behavior. It started recovering after, or much after the Brent price, but once it started, the rate it's clearly aggressive. Prices are going up really quick. There has been, after mid-May, there was some kind of stabilization, but right now in the last days, prices are going up again. And these prices are quite high. We are close to the prices that we had by mid-2018. That this was one of the highest prices that we had, except from some temporary spikes in price. It was a situation with very high prices that had an important impact in electricity prices also. And we are reaching a similar situation here. So we will see how it evolves. Right now, prices are keep going up. And one of the most interesting situations are the CO2 prices. We have seen how since October prices have went up really fast. In the last webinar that was in mid-May, we were just at this spike in the prices above 55 euros per ton. So the situation was a little bit scary because these CO2 prices has a huge impact on the electricity markets, spot markets, and futures market also. So, but after mid-May, there was an important drop around 5-7%, and right now prices are stable. They are bouncing between 50 euros and 52, 53. So basically, they are stable at this level. They are. It's a high level for the prices, but at least right now prices are stable. Why this behavior? Well, it's probably been a combination of factors. In mid-May, the CO2 auctions in UK started after the Brexit. So probably so there were a lot of EU allowances that were sold because they were not needed by the Britain companies. So, and also recent news about the funds that were investing in CO2 right now. they say that they entered the market in 2020 when the prices were really low. So right now they are selling part of their allowances, and this is probably making the price stable. How will it be? And also in April, companies had to redeem the emissions from 2020. So probably they right now they don't need more allowances for the time being. But how the price will evolve? Well, it's difficult to say. If we take into account all these factors, probably the most probable evolution is that the prices will keep these higher levels, so around 50 euros, and it's difficult for them to drop. And also there's a chance of these prices going up again, but probably there's also some probability. Also, the European Union is, let's say, they don't look too much worried about these high prices. CO2 emissions are a tool for decarbonization, so in order to incentivize for industries going green. So if let's say they prefer higher prices. So there's at least for the moment there's no intention of the European Union in order to, let's say, to cut the supply or to not to cut the supply to taking action in order to avoid higher prices in CO2. So probably the most probable evolution of the prices for now, it's just at least by the end of the year, we expect these prices to be more or less at these high levels, but difficult. It will be difficult from them to drop or to go to grow at least at so much. At a so much higher rate that we were seeing until now. So let's look at the electricity markets. I will not have time to go through all the markets, but what I'll do is I'll show you in our in our online platform how we can. Okay, here it is. We can try to see some interesting things. This is the electricity market price for Spain, and if we put it some perspective here, since January, we basically see how after the Filomena storm and after the low prices in February, the rate of the behavior of the market has clearly upward trend. Maybe that's too much history in order to explain. Let's put it at the beginning of April. Okay, that's better. So since April, what we are having is a clear upward trend. We had this a week or two with very low prices that were very close to zero. And this was probably, this was correlated with some high wind energy production. If we go to the wind energy production and we put it, let's say, since April, we see that, yes, obviously, in mid-May, we see this high wind energy episode that is clearly correlated with the drop in prices that we see. Well, we can put it, we can compare both variables. So price is the green one and wind is the red one. And you can see how in mid-May, high wind energy days correspond to low price days. More things that we can see, we can go to the fuels market and we can see how the CO2 prices that we have been seeing, these are the CO2 prices for the last day. You see since mid-May, the price has been quite stable, bouncing between 50 and 53, 54 euros. And if we go back to, let's say, January, or yeah, January it's fine. We see how the increasing rate of the price it's been quite aggressive, and we see the stabilization that we are seeing right now. This is interesting to compare, for instance, with the futures. With the futures market, for instance, of Spain, we have this is the future for CAL 22, and we are, if we put since January, like we did January, here we go. You can see that it's basically the same shape that we were seeing in the CO2. Let's go back to the CO2. That's the CO2 price behavior, and that's the CAL 22 for Spain behavior. It's exactly the same. So this, yes, the CO2 is one of the main components, the main factors, the main drivers of the future prices, also having an impact in the spot prices, but it is more clearly seen in the let's say in the power market. And well, this is our online platform available for our clients. You can have all kinds of comparisons. We have data for most of the European markets, fuel prices, electricity futures, fuels futures, also macroeconomic data. So GDPs, industrial production indexes for most of the countries, and you can also build your own observatories, that we call it. So basically, I've created this one because for me, in this way, it's easier to compare prices from Spain, France, Germany, and Italy. So it's a good way, for instance, to put all them in the same graph. And it's quite useful. Okay, going back to my slides. Here it is. Okay. So as I said, I will not go through all the markets. In our website, you can see all the market reports that we have available, market reports covering all the aspects of the energy market, so prices, demand, impact of self-consumption, wherever anything you can think about energy markets, and even if we have not available, we can consider analyzing it, because that's what we do and that's what we like to do. So this is here we are comparing how the recovery of the electricity demand is going after the COVID crisis in 2020. So basically, in order to compare them, we have put all of them, let's say, indexing all of them with the demand in January 2020. And then you can see how Italy was the first one that received the impact of the pandemic, the first one applying restrictions to the economy, activity, to the mobility. So that's the first one that starts seeing its demand decreasing, and then in March and April, the rest of the countries. And then some of the countries take longer in order to recover. Some of them recovered quite fast. This is basically dependent on how the restrictions have been applied and have been lifted and then reapplied in the summer to most of the countries. But let's say that by December, January of this year, most of the countries already recovered the demand that they had between the pandemic. So, and right now also obviously the demand is decreasing to the increasing temperatures, but we can say that we are kind of fully recovered in terms of electricity demand. If we look at prices, what we are seeing is that since the worst part of the crisis in March, well, April and May was the deep where the most lower prices. The recovery has been kind of steady. Once the price kind of fully recovered by the last quarter of 2020, then they started evolving in different ways. And basically, they are already above the levels previous to the crisis. And if we look in more detail, the prices for the last days, this is since the beginning of March. So basically where we are seeing obviously some oscillations. The highest prices are the UK market. Italy market also has the higher prices. Spain is also right now having very high prices. We had in Spain, we had very low prices in February, also low prices in March, but since then prices are growing, and right now all of the markets are having prices, quite high prices. We are close to, well, in Spain we are above 80 euros per megawatt hour, but all the countries are above 60 and 70 euros per megawatt hour. So these are really high prices, and as we are entering into the summer, where the demand is usually increasing due to the increase in the temperatures, and we are leaving the spring, where we are usually having more wind power, more hydropower. We are entering summer. It will be also interesting to see how the increase in photovoltaics in Spain, for instance, are going to affect the prices in summer, where we are expecting to have obviously a lot of sun, so a lot of radiation. And it will be interesting to see how this is impacted the prices in summer, prices that are usually high because we have low wind in summer and we have high demand. So it will be interesting to see how the photovoltaics are entering into and being an important driven, as we are expecting them to be in the following years with the increase of the capacity. So now let's look a little bit into the future. Let's see how the futures markets are right now. These are the forward curve for the Brent oil futures, and this is compared with the 4 weeks ago. So what we showed during our last webinar, and we see that as the spot prices have been increasing, also the forward curve for the short term is going up. So this is what we are seeing at the short and also at the midterm. At the long term, we are keeping the same prices, high prices below $60. They used to be a little bit lower, high prices, but at least stable at the long term. Something similar we are seeing in the gas forward curve. So as spot prices are increasing, we are seeing the short term of the forward curve increasing, but then rapidly in the midterm and in the long term, we are seeing stable prices around or above 15 euros per megawatt hour. And in the CO2, well, when we did the last webinar, we were just before that spike in the prices that we saw. So in the peak of that spike, prices were close to, the forward curves were close to the 60 euros. I think there were 58 or 56. So it was much higher. Right now, prices went down again, and they are stable at this price. And looking at the power forward curve, well, a similar situation like in the CO2. So in the last webinar, we were just before that spike in the prices that also impacted in the power futures prices. But right now we are back again at the same level. So stable prices right now compared to the ones we had 4 weeks before. And the behavior at the long term is basically as stable as we are seeing. So what are the keys when forecasting power prices right now? Well, obviously CO2 prices are, it's all important to keep an eye on them as always, but as right now they look stable, and there's a high probability that they will be stable for the next month. What's now more interesting is to see how the gas prices will evolve, because they are increasing a much slower pace that the rate that they were doing before, but they are increasing. So it's probably that they will have an impact on power prices. And as we were saying last time, what our models show is that prices right now are quite higher compared to what's the equilibrium for the power market. So at the midterm, obviously at the long term, but at the midterm, we are expecting prices to go down, close again to the equilibrium that is much lower than the prices that we are having right now. And at the long term, as I said, the situation is still stable. So obviously we expect fluctuation of the prices, there will be, but the average, the equilibrium, the price around where these fluctuations will occur, it will be the stable equilibrium that we are seeing right now. So now we will move to the second part of the content of this webinar, that will be the PPAs and how are they important for large customers. Large consumers, sorry. So when well, the importance before talking about large consumers, the importance for when financing renewable projects, so the importance from the producer part of the contract, it's that a PPA is an important piece when determining the revenue streams that the project will have. So these revenue streams will be impacted obviously for the power market prices and also for the PPA prices, and both are kind of are related. Obviously, the PPA prices, one of the reference are that they use in order to establish what will be the price of this agreement are the power markets. So what we saw during the coronavirus crisis, and it's that lower power prices markets lead to lower PPA prices, and all these let's say combined with the uncertainty that there were in March, April, May. Really, the uncertainty was huge. It was kind of impossible to know what were going to happen in the next month. So all these led to lower project revenues, or lower expected project revenues. So for entities, for investors, investing and financing renewable projects was kind of unattractive, and projects expected to have worse financing conditions, so higher prices, so more costly. So what happened is that the rate of new projects that were in the stage of just beginning or just developing was kind of slowed down. The rate slowed down quite a bit, but this situation, that one of the worst crises that you can expect, where basically everything stopped working, the energy sector in Europe showed its strength. So the rate of new projects slowed down, but financing of new projects kept going. So and soon afterwards, just where we were starting the next quarter, the third quarter in 2020, the rate of new projects increased again and reached previous levels. So this was an interesting lesson about the energy sector in Spain and Europe in general. How was its strengths? Looking at other sectors like, I don't know, transportation, where the impact of this crisis was huge, and they are still recovering, and they will get midterm at least in order to kind of fully recover. Looking at the energy sector, it's a very strong sector. So this is a very optimistic message for the sector in order to what we could expect in the future, what we could expect from new crises that we will see in the future. We are happily in a sector that it's very robust. a lot of showing a lot of resilience, and well, we are lucky. We are lucky in this sense. So how a PPA fits in a general strategy when you are selling or you are buying energy? Well, as always, the best strategy is to diversify. So diversify how you are selling your energy or how you are buying your energy. So the most simple way to diversify is just divide all the energy that you have to sell or you have to buy and put it in all the horizon. So put it apart in the some of this energy at the long term, some at the midterm, and some at the short term. And in the long term is where we are having these long-term bilateral contracts, is what we know as a PPA. So putting a part or a fraction of your energy into the long term is going to be a good way of diversifying. Fixing a price already for the long term. That's very good for risk management. So basically, yes, this is how a PPA fits in a global. Oops, sorry, I have to plug my computer. Otherwise, okay. Sorry about that. So as I was saying. This is how a PPA fits in a more general strategy. How is a PPA a tool for risk management? And that we think that this is the main idea behind the PPA. So PPA is good for what it is, and it is good for risk management. It's if you want to use a PPA in order to get the best possible price that you could have, even if you are a producer or if you are a consumer. It's difficult that with a PPA you will have the best possible price. Basically, because if you have the best price, then the other part has the worst price. So it's not the idea of the PPA trying to be speculative in trying to get the best price. The order is to the idea behind the PPA is to use it as a tool to mitigate the risk associated with the fluctuation in the energy markets. So energy prices fluctuate a lot, and they will keep doing that in the future. And we want that at least a part of our energy it's already at a fixed cost or at a fixed price that we are going to buy it or to sell it. So for a producer, it's a hedge against price fluctuation. So if they put all of the energy, if they are very conservative, or a smaller part of the energy, if they are more aggressive in a PPA, what is basically they will make the income and the revenues of their project kind of predictable. They will have they will know in advance that part of the energy will sell at a given price for 10, 15, 20 years. So basically that allows them to get better financing conditions when looking for financing. For the part of the consumer, basically, again, is a hedge against the price fluctuation. So having a part of their energy that they will have to buy in a PPA makes the cost of the energy predictable, at least in part. So basically, it makes for them possible to have a long-term viability plan, because if they are a large consumer or electro-intensive consumer, where most of or an important part of the costs of their production comes from electricity, then having most of this cost fixed for the long term, it's going to make them viable or at the long term. And as the renewable capacity is increasing, what we are seeing is that as the feed-in tariff frameworks are basically disappearing, we are seeing most of the renewable projects going directly to the market. We have seen how the PPAs have been increasing over years in Europe and also in the rest of the world. So, and what is important when we are going to sign, when we are going to negotiate a PPA? Well, as Deloitte said in one of our webinars, to face this new scenario, it is absolutely essential to have a long-term view on electricity prices. So in order to see, to set the price for a PPA, obviously first it needs to be a price that fits your financing model or your or your viability plan at the future. Obviously, if you are a consumer and the price is too high, then it doesn't matter. You will not, you don't need that PPA because obviously numbers are not what you are expecting. But once the prices are the ones that that your financing model, that your risk model can get, then what you need is a view of the future of the electricity markets, and then knowing or estimating what will be the price in the future. Then you can estimate what will be the best PPA, the PPA price for you right now, because you have to sign the PPA right now. And the characteristic of this long-term forecast, basically, it's important for it to cover most of the. If you are signing a PPA with a power plant, it's important for it to cover not just the PPA, the tenor of the PPA, but beyond that, because your power plant will keep selling energy after the PPA. So it's important. What will happen after the PPA is important in order to determine what's the best PPA price. So it's important for the PPA to cover not just the tenor of the PPA, but also afterwards. It's important to have hourly price estimations, because in that way, with your production profile or your consuming profile, you can know what would be the cost of buying or selling your energy into the market. So, and in that way, you could estimate what's the best PPA price. Also important, having confidence band in order for risk management, and long-term forecasts are just not useful for PPAs, but also if you are a power plant and you are going to a public auction. Also, if you're going full merchant, it's very important to have to have a long-term price forecast, and also asset valuations for due diligences, etc. So now that we have mentioned the public actions, so it's important to understand what are the differences between a PPA and a public action, because with the prices that we are seeing in public actions all over the world, photovoltaic prices in public actions are record lows. We are seeing very, very low prices, and we have to understand, because if you are a large consumer and you are going to sign a PPA with a photovoltaics, let's say power plant, you cannot expect those low prices to be the ones that the power plant will be offering you. So it's important to understand what are the differences between these two products, because at the end they are different products, and their differences is what make the prices of these two products different. So on one side, you have that the PPAs are usually shorter than most of the PPAs are around 5-10 years. Some of them reaching 15-20 years, but this is not most of them. So while the public actions, at least in Spain, here we are focusing on the last auctions that we will see by the end of January in Spain, are covering just 12 years. Public actions are covering all the production that the plant is producing. So basically, it's a pay as produced. Everything that the power plant produces goes under the regime, the economic regime of the public actions. While usually PPAs do not cover all the all the production may be 50%, 80%. So that's also a difference. Also, very important. PPAs are usually made in a way that they are intentionally made in a way that it's difficult for any of the parties to leave the contract, because if you leave the contract, it means that the market conditions in that moment are better for you than for the other part. So the other part don't want you to leave the contract in where such condition occurs. So they are made in a way that it's difficult for any of the parties to leave the contract. While in the case of the public action in Spain, there is the option to terminate early this economic regime. So if at a given moment you see that the market conditions are better for you, then you just pay a small fee, and then you can go directly to the market and hopefully get better conditions. Another very important difference that we will see afterwards why they are so important. The public actions, the economic regime of the Spanish auctions are guaranteed by the state. So basically the state is paying you, or it's guaranteeing you a price, the price that you bid in the auctions. While on the PPAs, you basically have to trust the guarantees that the off-taker is giving you. So basically this is putting more risk on the producer side in order not to be paid by the off-taker. So this obviously makes the price of the PPA higher. Obviously PPAs are complex contracts, so usually this also increases the prices. And in public auctions, you have large companies making strategic bids, looking at the very long term, looking also at the publicity that these auction results are going to give them. So it's difficult to extrapolate these bids as the price of the technology, or the price that you can get in a PPA. So summarizing this, what we have said, going from the higher prices that are the ones that we can find right now in the futures market. If you look at 10 years ahead, we are having around 40 euros per megawatt hour right now, but there's no liquidity the futures market, you can just buy Cal 22, Cal 23 maybe, but no farther than that. So basically, then you have to go to a PPA, and the PPA obviously will have a little bit smaller price. If you go for a baseload PPA, then the risk is on the producer side, so this means higher prices. If you go to a pay-as-produced PPA, this means that the risk is put on the consumer side, in order that they basically have to accept all that comes from the power plant, and then they have to buy the rest of their consumption. So this decreases the prices because you are putting more risk on the buyer side. And then with lower prices, we have the public actions. In Spain, in the last auction, we get prices. The average price was around 25. The highest prices were around 29 euros per megawatt hour. And the lowest prices that were awarded were even below 20 euros per megawatt. That was, obviously here we are talking, as I said, large companies making very strategic bids at a very long term. Or even the most competitive projects can go down to these prices. Focusing on the PPAs specifically from the side of the large consumers, what can get large consumers from a PPA? Well, basically, as a risk management tool, they get visibility and certainty about the cost of their energy, or part of the energy, at the large cost, at the large term, at the long term, So basically, they are hedging against the price fluctuation in the market. This a PPA, if it is as it is usually with a renewable power plant, basically allows the company to meet their contribution to the reduction of the emission that all the European markets, our European countries have set for 2030 and also for 2050. So basically, it's an important part of their corporate social responsibility. Also, it's a measure of cost efficiency. So if the PPA is part of a larger strategy in the diversification of when buying your energy, then it makes it more cost effective. And related with the corporate social responsibility, if you are in a PPA with a renewable power plant, then you are getting the guarantees of origin of the plant, so you can redeem against your consumption, and basically you are going green. Okay. One important step in Spain with the large consumers in the last month was the publication of the electro-intensive consumers statute. So basically, this statute, it was published by the end of December 2020. Basically, this statute defines what a large consumer is in Spain. Basically, you have to fulfill some kind of conditions about your consumption, and basically it puts some advantages and some obligations also to this large consumer. One of the most interesting, well, because we are talking about PPAs, is that electro-intensive consumers are obligated. They must purchase at least 10% of their consumption in electricity through PPAs with directly or indirectly, maybe through a retailer, maybe directly with a power plant, but it has to be with renewable energy producers. And it has to be of a minimum of 5 years. So this statute is putting the obligation of electro-intensive consumers in Spain sign PPAs for at least 10% of their consumption for at least 5 years. And what is the supporting mechanisms for this in order to impose these PPAs? Well, this is where it's getting important, because let's say the risk associated with a producer to sign a PPA with an electro-intensive consumer, so the risk of the off-taker, let's say, is backed up by the state. So this is a Spanish export credit insurance company. It's a little boring to read all of this, but I highlighted what is important. Will manage the guarantor on its behalf and on behalf of the state. This means that the producer, basically, they are signing a PPA with an electro-intensive consumer, but behind that electric consumer, if the electric consumer cannot pay, let's say, what is signed in the PPA, behind that, there's the state. So you will end up having the guarantee of the state. And this is one of the highest credit rating that you can have, the state guaranteed off-taker. So it's basically the highest rate in credit rating that you can have. So, and this is obviously for the consumer, it's a good point, but it's also a measure in order to incentivize also the renewable energy projects. Because if we look it from the side of the producer, basically they are getting the highest guarantee that they can have. This is the guarantee by the state. Basically, this means a lot of less risk. And this basically means better financing conditions. So it's a kind of a win solution for the renewable projects, and also from the side of the consumer, having the producer much less risk means that you are going to have you are going to get lower prices. So it's kind of a win-win solution. It will be very interesting to see how this evolves. So these PPAs, we are seeing them as that they will have an important impact in the PPAs in Spain. Spain is already one of the most active countries in terms of PPA right now. So this incentive of PPAs guaranteed by the state, we think they are going to have an important factor. So probably we will be talking about that in future webinars to see how this evolves. But it's going to be a very interesting to see how this evolves. So moving now to the last part of the content of this webinar, we'll be seeing how the decarbonization of the industry can happen. Also, as I said, we will not be talking a lot about the green hydrogen. We will leave it for the next webinar. So if you remember our last webinar, we talked about transportation and how important will be its decarbonization, and we will now focus on the other large sector in terms of emission, that is the industry. As you know, the final goal of the European Union is to be neutral in carbon emissions by 2050. We have this midterm goal in 2030 of reducing by 55% our emissions, and this means increasing the share of renewable energy in our energy mix. If we look at the total energy that the European Union is consuming, you see how it's been kind of stable for the last, since 1990. But the consumption of emitting fuel, so this great part is oil, coal, natural gas, everything that's non-renewable, and it's emitting CO2. So basically, it's going down. So the increase of non-emitting technologies is clear, but we are still talking about 70% of everything that we consume. It's coming from contaminating technologies, contaminating fuels. In Spain, the situation is more or less the same. We are talking here about 72%. And we can see how the non-emitting technologies, non-emitting fuels is increasing, but still there's a lot of room. There's a lot of this energy that either we have to not consume it or consume it in form of renewable energies. So there's a lot of room for improvement. If we look at how the energy consumption by sector, we see how roughly it's 1/4 of all the energy it's consumed by the industry. Then we have transportation, that's what we talked in the last webinar. Then we have residential, and then we have the rest. So it's roughly 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4. So industry, it's 25-26% of all the consumption. So decarbonizing industry is going to have a huge impact on the decarbonizing all the economy. In Spain, more or less the same situation. Transportation is using a lot more energy than in a fraction of the energy than in Europe, but industry again is 25%. So if we focus now on the consumption on the industry sector, what we are seeing is that half of all the energy consumed by industry in the European Union, it's coming from fossil fuels and non-renewable technologies. That means emission of CO2, emission of greenhouse gases. So this is all this great part is what have to be covered from other technologies. And well, not only that, because this blue part is electricity used by the industry, and not all the electricity is coming from renewable sources. So we have also emissions coming from from this fraction of the of the consumption. So what we have to reduce is more than 50% in reality. In Spain, a similar situation. In this case, a little bit, 58%. But well, in Spain, we are kind of in advantage because a large fraction of our electricity is consumed, is produced by renewable energies. But anyhow, we have a lot of room in order to get neutral by the end of 2050, to get neutral on emissions. If we try to put that on a scale, right now the consumption of electricity in the Spanish industry compared to all the energy that the Spanish industry is consuming is basically 3 times. So if we want to electrify, or we want to transform all the energy that we are consuming in using it with electricity, basically we have to multiply it by 3. In the European, the global of the European Union, the situation is similar. So basically multiplying by 3 the electricity consumption if we want to electrify, completely electrify all the industry. We will see afterwards that it's not the most efficient way to electrify it. But this is just to put it into perspective what we are talking about. If we look at the emissions from the industry sector, we see that in Europe, the evolution is clearly going downwards. The reference year is 1990. So for the global economy, the reduction has to be 55% with respect to this value. This is only industry sector, so it's not the whole the whole economy. But you can see that in terms of the industry, we are not far of that. We are already at half of we were having in 1990. So at least in terms of the industry sector in Europe, things are going relatively well. But remember that 55%, this 55% goal is just for 2030. For 2050, we have to go to 0 emissions. So there's a lot of room still for improvement. In Spain, the situation is a little bit different because compared to 1990, we are basically at the same level right now. So Spain is a little behind in terms of reducing the emissions from the industry sector. And okay, what can we do in order to decarbonize the industry? Well, one of the obvious things is reduce the consumption of energy. If you reduce the consumption of energy, less energy have to be consumed, so you will emit less CO2 and greenhouse gases. And the energy efficiency, it's something that it's already in place. We have already seen the decoupling between the GDP and the consumption of energy is something that after the crisis in 2008, when things start recovering, 2013, 14, 2015, we have seen how the GDP is increasing again, but the consumption of energy is increasing at much lower rate. So we are seeing how these energy efficiency measures are already in place and are already having an impact in the consumption of energy and emissions. Obviously, there is still some room for improvement, but it's something that it's, let's say, already in place. Now, the measure that has most potential is the electrification with renewable energies, obviously, and the use of green hydrogen. So if all the energy that the industry is consuming is going to electricity, and we get this electricity from renewable sources, and the hydrogen that we use is only green hydrogen, then basically we will have 0 emissions from the industry. And this is the measure that has most potential. Then we have other strategies that are a little bit limited, because we can, if what we need is heat, in what we can use is directly solar heat through concentrated solar power, but that's obviously, this is only limited regions with most solar radiation, basically Spain and the southern part of Italy, so it's quite limited. Also, biofuels are a way to decarbonize, but this is limited for the resources. So, in order to produce biofuels, you need raw materials. So you are limited to the primary sources. And then there's the carbon capture and carbon utilization and storage. This is still kind of experimental, but it's something that it will be needed, because at some point we will start decreasing our emissions, but at some point we will find that it's impossible to eliminate them completely, because obviously if you need fossil fuels in order to produce energy for industry, well, then you can change this energy using renewable energies. But if you need fossil fuels because you need the carbon, because it's one of your raw materials in order to produce whatever you are producing, then there are going to be emissions anyway. So when we arrive at that point that it will be no further possible to reduce emissions, then we will need to capture that carbon, use it if it is possible to use it, or just storage, in order to have that net balance of emissions. So producing, and then what we cannot reduce, just compensate it, capturing it, utilizing it in other ways, or whatever. So as I said, what electrification, it's one of the most important ways in order to reduce the emissions from industry, but it is expected that through electrification, we will be able to reduce the emissions at most by 50%. That's because a lot of energy that is used in the industry, it's used in order to produce heat. And producing heat with electricity, it's not very efficient. And sometimes it's impossible. It's very difficult or impossible to produce very high heat, very high temperatures using just electricity. So we can electrify part of the industry and reduce the emissions by 50%, but then we have the remaining 50%. And here is where hydrogen, here is where carbon capture technologies are going to fill this gap that we will not be able to electrify. And hydrogen will have a key role in the decarbonization industry. In the last webinar, we saw how hydrogen were going to have also a key role decarbonizing transportation. So to produce heat, there's also hydrogen is used in a lot of industries, chemicals, fertilizers. There are a lot of industries that are using hydrogen as a raw material. So all this hydrogen will need to be green hydrogen, because if you produce emissions when producing this hydrogen, then we will not decarbonize the industry. So two very important factors when decarbonizing the industry: electrification and then green hydrogen. And we have a lot of information, a lot of data to show you about green hydrogen, but we are already at the limit of the time. So as I said, we will show you this in our next webinar. That will be, let me show you, it will be on July 15, and we will be talking about the first half of 2021. We will make a balance about how electricity prices, demand, the production, the evolution of the electricity mix in all the European countries. And then we will also talk, as I said, about hydrogen and how it will play a key role when decarbonizing the economy. And that's it, Alejandro.
Thank you very much, Oriol, for that detailed presentation. And well, we will start now the Q&A section of this webinar. We will answer only a couple of questions because we don't have much time left. And I have a question already. Which European markets are you forecasting, and which are the more requested markets? Well, as Oriol answered in his presentation, we are providing price forecasting reports for all European markets. And of those, we have provided the more reports at the long term, mostly for first for Spain, because it's where the most PPA have been signing, then for Italy and Poland, and then also for Romania, France, Germany, UK, and the Nord Pool market of the Nordic countries. So, Uriol, I think you have already a question.
Yes, sorry. Yes, I have to choose a question. Okay, I'll choose this one. Do you have a view on the degree of speculation on carbon prices? In other words, do you see reverting to lower levels, kept at the same or rising even more? Well, when trying to estimate the grade of speculation in the market, basically you have to trust the sources. And what we have seen in recent news is that some funds were saying just that they entered the market in the lowest prices during 2020, and right now they are selling part of the allowances that they have. They are keeping some of them because they are expecting the prices, so they are seeing potential in these prices. But right now, as the redemptions of the allowances for 2020, so we are expecting, let's say, a calm period during the rest of the month of this year. So obviously there is potential for prices going up. Going down also there's some probability, but as I said, the European Union, it's quite fine with these high prices because it's what they want in order from the CO2, the right emissions in order to be effective in decarbonizing the economy. So there's some probability prices going down. If these funds start selling a lot of this of the allowances that they have, probably there's some room from the price to go lower. But if not, what we are expecting for the rest of the year at least is just stable prices around this 50 euros per ton.
Thank you, Uriol. Well, just to end, if you want to answer one more question, that's it.
Okay, let me see. Do you consider it a good strategy for a large consumer to sign a PPA if market prices are expected to fall with the increase in renewable energies? Well, my clear answer would be yes. To sign a PPA, it's always a good thing to do. It's important to put it inside of a more global strategy. So PPA must be a part of your selling strategy, well, buying strategy. We are talking about the consumer. So yes, having a PPA means that at least for a large or for a fraction of your cost, you have them fixed. You don't care about what the market is doing. Prices go up, good for you because you are having a PPA signed at lower prices. If prices go down, well, good for you because you already were having into account these prices, that price for the long term. So basically, you are protected against price fluctuation, wherever is the direction of the fluctuation, up or down. So the answer is yes.
Okay, perfect. So that's it. That ends the webinar today. And thank you again, Oriol, for your presentation and the audience for joining. Have a nice day.